All right, we're live. Hey, welcome back to Working on Wealth for March 31st, last day of the first quarter of 2022. How's everybody doing?
Good, thank you.
So far, so good.
All right. How's everybody's business doing so far?
Good, I have 3 ESCOs going.
Whoa! Way to go, Cece. And you still made it here. I love it. Anybody else? Hey, Sharon, good to see you.
Hi, Ed. Good to see you too. How are you doing?
Do you have any news to share with us?
Well, I got an appointment, so we're gonna go see it not this Saturday, but next Saturday. But that's been the biggest challenge so far is to get
Just getting in to see it, huh?
getting in to see it.
Cool. Sharon has identified a pretty awesome looking property on near the somewhere in the Eagle Rock area. But we'll leave it at that because we don't want to. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it next week when you tell us about your escrow, hopefully. Okay, so cool. Anybody else? Welcome back. Welcome back. Isn't it crazy that today is the last day of Q1? Just crazy stuff. Okay, so as we do, anybody want to share anything, victories, losses, whatever you want to talk about finance in your personal life? Share as much or as little as you want to. Anybody have anything to share with us?
I've got some losses that I'll share. As a dual career, I work in a school or a couple schools, and so just within the past week, I've started to increase conversations about real estate with the people I work with, and I'm finding I missed a couple opportunities for listings that are currently on the market where somebody could have gone with me, but they went with their own realtor. So that was a good wake up call to keep those conversations up. And yeah.
Oh man, I so hear you, Miguel. And there's just nothing worse than like realizing that someone who you thought I just assumed would used somebody else for a real estate transaction. It never feels good. I remember driving back when I lived in Carolina. I remember driving home and pulling into my driveway and realizing that my next door neighbor had a sign from another realtor, and I just was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" Like, yeah. Wait till you ask me for my lawnmower this weekend.
Yeah, and it was, I had started reaching out to a lot more people, and then I guess I started it and the timing was off for at least them. But yeah, it was a reminder to stay on top of that in addition to school stuff.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to do is I for doing your 36 touch with your existing database or whoever you want, the people you're trying to work with, I try to automate. So what I always did is I had postcards and I had emails and social media posts, and then I had the phone calls. The phone calls was, I did that once a quarter, but everything else, I tried to make it as automated as possible so that no matter how busy I got, no matter how many, whatever was going on, they would always get my postcard and my email or whatever else. And the phone call, I would always try to keep relatively on pace, but there were some weeks when I would get backed up, and there was, especially as I got busier and busier, there were some weeks when I would get backed up and some weeks when I would have a surplus, and when I had some extra time, I would try to make more than the calls necessary so that I could, have a little bit in reserve, be a little bit ahead of where I was supposed to be. Anyways, anyone else want to share anything about anything financial they're doing? Okay, so let's do this. Let's cover, we talked about reading. So 226 at the end of the chapter. Let's just talk. We haven't cracked open the book really lately, and I just want to make sure that we get through this darn book, right? So let's just cover 226 to the end of the chapter. I'll tell you a few of the things that I got from it. Okay, so on 226, there's terms for buy and sell. This is the spreadsheet that you would use for flipping, right? And they've got a separate worksheet. There's a sample of it here, but you can also download the live version from Keller Inc. You know, sure, this is a pretty good worksheet for flipping a property. You know, there's some other details in here about what to look for as you're flipping a property. One thing they talk about is try not to be optimistic about how quickly the property is going to sell. Like, you want to price the property so that it will sell quickly. You don't want to like overestimate what you think the property will sell for and then have it sit around on the market for a week or, for a month or 2 months, or God forbid, 3 months. You want to, like, you know, part of flipping is getting in and getting out. The longer you're on the market, the more time there is for bad things to happen. The quicker you're in and out, the less exposed you are to risk. That's what I was always taught. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
So I have a listing coming up in Sherman Oaks. Sorry, I was just grabbing something. So I have a listing coming up in Sherman Oaks. This particular property has been solely an income property for my seller. So I think she's owned it for about, I don't know, I'd say 6 years, maybe 8 years at the most, and used it just as a rental. And then the last 2 years it sat vacant because of COVID, and she didn't feel like renting it, whatever the reason might be.
I mean, she may have been afraid to get a tenant in there and then not be able to get them out.
She might have been doing the right thing at that point, and
Yeah.
you know, we never questioned it. We just kind of went with it. So now she's in a place where, so she wants to sell it so she can buy a home. And now I've had other agents bring in potential investors to look at that property for a rental. So now the market's completely changed, obviously, from when my client bought this rental property. I think she owes like a little over 100 grand on it. So she's going to make a good amount of money on this condo.
Yeah.
And so now, you know, we're running the comps for these potential buyers to look at it as a potential rental property. And I still think that there's really great, I guess you say, investment opportunities in the market, because rents have gone up so much. So it's not like, okay, you're going to buy this property and yeah, it might be really super expensive, but from what I'm seeing, I don't know if you guys are seeing something different, but condos aren't going up as much as homes are, but they're still up there. They are still up there.
Yeah, and I would now we're going to into a little bit of speculation here, but I would say that I'm seeing signs that the market is not going to do the second half of this year what it's done for the past several years. Like, I mean, the interest rates have really gone up, and a lot. You know, they're still relatively low historically, but when you go from, you know, bargain basement to then charging, you know, to even the low rate of 5% or 5.5%, that's a huge increase over what it was. And you're seeing that start to have an effect on the market, especially in lower price points. You know, but that's what I'm seeing. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because then like potential buyers are now can afford less of a home than they could have in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So
is she going to do like any sort of 1031 exchange? Like what's she planning on doing there?
No, she's just going to just sell that house and just buy a new house. So she's not going to do a 1031 exchange.
Okay.
As far as I know, you know, this happened because of a breakup. So she has to get out of the fiance's home, and she had this rental. So now she got to sell that and buy her own house. So that's kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we're all familiar with and kind of gone through it being in real estate.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still think that condo can pull about $3,000 a month, you know, being a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So
did we answer all your questions? Was there anything else that we need to answer there?
No,
Okay, cool. Yeah, so thanks for that. The flip worksheet that's in here, it's pretty self-explanatory. We used it once before, if you guys remember. I'm trying to see anything else. On page 232, they talk about, it is possible to over improve a property, and it's been a while since I saw something like this, especially because, here in California, it's not as, it's really hard to over improve, especially in, as you get close towards the beaches. But I remember when I was doing business on the East Coast, there were some neighborhoods that were like very blue collar, and you'd have some people who would just start pouring money into these homes, especially when it's like a development, a subdivision where they're all the same floor plan, or a condo. Like, oh, here's where you'll see it in our part of town is like there's a condo, right? And say you're in a building where there's 50 units that are all the exact same floor plan. And every one of them, when they were built, all has like granite countertops, and, they all have engineered hardwood floors or laminate or whatever. And then somebody comes in and they decide like, they're going to put in marble, and they're going to, they just go all out and spend like an extra 400, just go all crazy on the condo unit. You're never going to get that out like that. Everybody has like, basic stainless steel appliances, and then someone goes out and gets all Bosch appliances. Like you're just dumping money and pouring it down the drain. You're never going to get that money out. Will you get a little bit more because yours has Bosch appliances? Yeah. Are you going to get the extra, whatever? I don't know how much they cost, but like what, $30,000 for like super, super high-end appliances? No, you're not going to get that much out of it, right? So that's over improving a property. There's that saying that you don't ever want to fix up a property to be the best property in the neighborhood, right? I think that's true to an extent. I mean, can you be a little bit better than the neighbor? Sure, especially if you're renovating in a place where you expect other people are going to be renovating soon. But just be careful. You don't want to renovate to an extent that's out of whack with the rest of the neighborhood, because that's when you start to, you're overreaching, right? Anyone want to add anything to that? At the same time, like when it's, you don't want to under improve a property either. Like if you're going to flip a property and you're in, the tree section of Manhattan Beach, you probably don't want to put in, tile countertops or like Formica countertops or something, like you're going to want to step up your game. Like you're going to want to match to some extent what's around you, right? You guys already know this, so I don't want to belabor the point too much, but he does make a point of talking about it. So I figured some of this we've covered before. On page 236, there's a separate worksheet for buying and holding. I will tell you that for buying and holding, which is basically long-term hold, right? I much prefer the worksheet that we've been using. I think it's much more powerful than the one that they've got here on page figure 56 from page 236. He has a couple examples of like using these things in action. I recommend reading it. It's pretty cool. He talks about like on page 247. I love this part here. It says, if knowledge is power, you now have more power. You should feel ready, willing, and more able than ever before to make real estate investments, to take your financial wealth building to the next level. All that remains is to get into action, informed, purposeful action. There are two very practical steps to take. First, to understand value, and second, to get perspective before you explore your acquisition strategies. Right? And once you know those things, you understand the value, you got some perspective, then you decide if you want to buy and live, right? Buy and sell or buy and hold, right? That's on page 248. Sometimes it makes more sense to flip a property, and sometimes it makes more sense to hold it. And then sometimes it makes sense to buy it, renovate it, and then hold it, right? Sometimes it makes more sense to buy, rent it out and then renovate it before you sell it. But I would say usually if you're gonna renovate it, why not renovate it and get more rent for the property for the whole duration while you own it? Unless you plan on like really going all out on it and you don't want to risk having somebody blemish the property before you put it up on the market. There's a whole lot of discussion that could happen around that point. Anyone want to add to that?
So I can tell you, one thing I experienced with this whole renovation of the condo, because the condo was being renovated. So what she wanted to do was minimal. And then once we got started, I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, it was like, oh, well, let's do this. Well, then let's do that. And then once all the work was done, she came back in and was like, oh, we should have done lighting. We should have done this. We should have done that. And at that point, it's like, okay, you're going to spend $10,000 more on lighting. And then how much are you really going to get back at this point? Because, everything's said and done, work crew's gone. So I don't know if anyone's kind of experienced that at that point where it's just like they do one thing and then they want to do more and more and more, but then they wanted to keep it at a minimal. So like, how do you navigate through that?
Yeah, God, it's funny. The same thing happened to me about a year and a half ago. I was working with some people renovating a property in North Redondo, and they just went over budget. They just kept adding and adding and adding to the place looked beautiful, as you can imagine when it was done. It looked crazy. People like came and saw it like, whoa, people who came in and saw the property were like, wow, this is like so much better than we expected. I'm like, well, yeah, because the people flipping it, spent way too, and they didn't lose money, but that's one of the main challenges that I have found in flipping properties is being disciplined with your spending, because it's really easy to get carried away. The contractors in there, like, which surface do you want? Which countertop do you want? There's this one, but isn't this one so much nicer? And you have to make those decisions, and it's not easy. And you have to remember, this is not you living in the property. This is a business, right? And your clients sound like they were like getting carried away, like forgetting that they're not going to be living in the property.
That's exactly what was happening. I kept having to remind her, this isn't up to like your standards, because her standards are kind of high for living and what have you. This isn't for you. You're going to spend 10 grand more on, lighting, and then what? You're going to add 10 more grand to the price, because that's pretty much what it equates to. It's a wash. I wouldn't do anything else other than what she had done at that point.
Yeah.
Talk her off the ledge.
It becomes emotional, and people are doing stuff based on emotion. And when you're flipping, it's a business. Don't get me wrong. There is a place for putting in some personality and adding some things, but in the end, it's strictly a business, especially a flip that you're not even going to own and rent out. If you're going to rent out a property, like, you may want to put a little more into it in case you ever end up living in it yourself or for whatever reason. But especially a flip, like, what paint color should you paint a flip? Whatever one is going to satisfy the greatest amount of people in the market right now. Like, that's all you should give a darn about. Right? Because it's all about the money. It's all about just. The other thing too is, on that same line, like we're talking about, when you're flipping a property, you don't want to start taking, like, it's not a time to get all creative and try your hand at some new like color palette that you saw on, just go with kind of like, hey, can you be a little creative here and there? Yeah, but be very careful. Like, every time you make a bold choice, that means you've boldly limited the number of people who are now going to be interested in the property, right? Like, because by the way, I remember, God, when was it? Just recently, I was seeing a flip property, and I remember walking around being like, these guys made some really bold choices, which I happen to like, and I thought they were fun because I like them personally, and I thought at the same time they were really, really dumb things to do because most people would not like them. And you want things that are you want to make decisions that are crowd pleasers, like, hey, lots of bright white nowadays, gray carpets still very much in vogue. Like it's kind of timeless, like you can't really go wrong with it. Quartz countertops is cool. If you want to go down a notch, that's cool too. But like, keep neutral colors is very much in vogue. If you want to paint something that's maybe like a cobalt blue, like a door or something to have some color palette to it, fine, that's okay. But like the minute you start going like a hot pink, freaking front door, like great. Now you've just excluded every male person who might want to buy you know what I mean, right? You want to cast your net as wide as possible, right? All right, I'm just going.
We had
riffing
that
here.
fight too. No, we had that fight too. We did. We
Yeah.
had that fight too.
And
David, yes.
yeah, the simplest way that I can put it is that with just like any other business, the only thing that you want to do is you want to have the customer in mind. You want to have your avatar. What
Yeah.
is it that they want? What is not that what you want it to look like? What you want is you want to create a product for the demand of other people. So and also you need to make sure that you are not really going too broad, because there's there's so many people in this world with different ideas and different needs and wants, and you just want to make sure that you are, for example, if you are doing a 2-bedroom 2-bath, it's a different clientele than a 4-bedroom 3-bath. You
Yeah.
need to make sure that those clients are different. You need those clients that are looking for 4-bedroom, they usually have kids and they don't really care much about certain things, but they care about other things. So you have to have that in your mind, that what my client wants. So who is my client
Yeah.
for this particular product?
That's a great point, David. Yeah, perhaps I should, when I said being broad, I meant within the demographics or the whoever you think is going to be your sell. Yeah, that's a great point, because you also do want to have your target. You said it better. Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Thanks for adding that. One thing I'll say too is that even for flipping, hey, if you're a great interior designer, awesome. If you're not, bring in somebody who is, or like, I love just R&D, like if you're selling a particular neighborhood, like keep an eye out for what's selling. And if you see a property that's really awesome and you like it, take some pictures and try to duplicate it as much as possible. Tell your stager, hey, I want it to look like this. Or even better yet, if the property was staged, ask who the stager was, and tell them you want to replicate that as much as possible. Anyways, okay, I think we've kind of beat through that. That's it for that chapter. On 250 and 251, they have the summaries, 251 and 252. We're not going to go through that, but it is good to have that to kind of refer back to. Okay, let's take a look at a new property for today. We are going to look at, let me pull it up here. We're going to analyze another property. We're going to analyze a property in Denton, Texas. On Zillow. What was that again? 2939 Overlake, right? Drive.
I think you told me earlier at 3929 Overlake. That's what
Oh, that's what it is. That's why I can't find it. There we go. Okay, so funny story about this property is I used to own it. So this was a property that my wife and I bought on the courthouse steps. Let me see if I can pull up really quick. I don't know if I still have the details on this property. Hold on, I should, and my apologies. I booked 2 appointments this morning that weren't supposed to happen. And all right, so let me do something really quick. So Dropbox. One second. Oh, oh, here it is. Oh my God. All right, so here's Overlake today. This is the biggest, my biggest financial regret in my lifetime. So here's the property. Its estimate says it's worth $324,000 today. It's probably worth more than that. It's more like 340. Rebecca and I bought it in 2006 for $116,000.
Wow.
Anyways, but yeah, let's see if, if this
So
property.
why did you sell it? You just took your profit and moved on?
No, we didn't want to sell it. We were in financial trouble.
Oh, okay.
We had luckily we were able to sell it, and that's cool. But yeah, we had some financial trouble,
you had
and
to.
yeah, we had to get
I
out
was
of
just
it.
curious if you took your profit and moved on.
Oh no, even as we were selling it, I was so pissed because I knew it was going to be such a winner down the road. I was like, oh, it just hurt. I was like, no, I want, we ended up selling three properties that year. And this was the one that I was like, oh, but I love this property so much. All right. Oops, where'd it go? Okay, so let's analyze this property today. If you were to buy this property today, by the way, and there's a college nearby, UNT is not too far from it. Has a really nice layout for a rental property. It's like very, it was well built, and it's just very durable. I remember we just never had problems with that property ever. All right, so where's my analyzer? Give me a second here. All right, where am I at? Okay, it's going to take me a second to open up the analyzer here, the tool. But here's some things that I like about Texas in general. The Dallas Denton area has been growing like crazy. So let me duplicate this file save as. Things are still super affordable there. If I remember correctly, the insurance and the property taxes are both really low. Yeah, it was a great workhorse property. I would totally buy in Texas again. In particular, my brother-in-law was running a property management company, so that was like super convenient, and he handled the real estate transaction. So this is how I got into real estate. This was one of the first transactions I did that kind of got Rebecca and I into real estate. But yeah, I just remember, it just was not hard to rent. It was in a great neighborhood that was just very easy to rent out. Like we never had problems finding tenants, and good ones at that. And yeah. Do you guys have any questions about Texas? And the laws, as you can imagine, are very favorable to landlords. It is extremely easy to evict tenants from properties. I don't know if they ever had a COVID moratorium, but I know that, while we owned it, should we ever have had a tenant who was late in paying or whatever, it would have been very easy to evict a tenant with no problem whatsoever. Just stuff like that. The laws are very lean towards landlords as opposed to towards the tenant.
And
Yes, David.
yeah, I'm currently doing a lot of rentals in Texas. If somebody doesn't pay, they're out in 3 weeks. Simple as that.
All right. Just, yeah.
All their belongings will be out, out on the porch in 3 weeks. So that is a completely different system than it is here. But you have to really understand the other aspects of it, like the tax, the property taxes there. So you really have to know
Yeah.
that property taxes is not like California here that is set on your purchase price or based on 2% each year. Each year is valued for that year, and you have to protest that. Each year, the company's attorneys out there that's their job. You just kind of contract with them, and they charge 25% of the difference, and they just do the protest for you, and that's it. But there are different things in Texas. But again, depends on what part of Texas you are. Sometimes you run into type of tenants that you may or may not want. So it all depends on where you are investing.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing they say in Texas is, it used to be years ago, people would say, be careful investing in Texas because it's an oil economy, and there's booms and busts with the energy sector, right? So if the energy sector is doing well, prices go up. If they go down, prices go down. And they say in Texas, just be careful because there used to be a history of overdevelopment, and they would say, well, there's so much land in Texas that you got to be careful because you don't want to, buy some track house out in the middle of nowhere. I would say if you're in the major corridors of the major cities, if you're like not in the middle of like Podunk, middle of nowhere, Texas, but if you're like close to one of the major cities, that's not so true these days. The economy is far more diversified than it used to be. There's a lot of tech companies moving into Texas. There's a lot going on there. There's tourism more in Texas now than there used to be. There's just a lot going on. It's not just an oil economy anymore. And in the cities, Austin, Texas is a great example. If anything, it's overdeveloped. In fact, that's a whole nother story that we could go into for a while. But so yeah, there's a lot going on there. I would still, feel comfortable investing there. It's not so much, it's been booming for so long that will it continue booming for the same rate? I doubt it, but like everywhere else, it's, I don't know that it has as much room to grow as other places, but I don't know. Maybe it could continue for, much, much longer for all I know. Sharon, did you have your hand up? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So this property that you were just talking about, what would that rent for now?
So let's see. So there's a few great sources for finding rentals. So here, let me share my screen so you can see where I would go to find that information. The best way is always going to be to talk to somebody who's experienced in that market. So you're never going to beat, the best way is if you already have your property manager picked out for that area, just ask them. That they'll be able to tell you the straight answer. And no one is ever going to be able to beat their knowledge, because that's what they do all day long, is rent out properties. So in the meantime, you can't just, call up every property manager every 5 minutes and say, hey, what's this going to rent out? But for our purposes, where did I put that page now? Oh, okay, one second here. I shared the wrong screen. Share this. On Zillow, as a great first pass, if you scroll down, oftentimes they'll put an estimated rent amount.
Yeah.
Let's see. Rentals estimate right here. They're saying 1950. So that's a good place to start. How accurate is that? I don't know. There's also, what's it called? Rentometer. And we could say over Lake. Yeah, they're giving a very similar number here, 1955, 1995, so somewhere in there. Between 1950 and 2000 is, I think, a safe number to go with. And then what I like about Zillow too is it gives you some estimates on insurance and now, again, what David said is right, which is true for almost everywhere except California, that property taxes are assessed by the county assessor. The county assessor assesses the value of the property, and then usually there's a millage rate that your property taxes are based on the assessed property value times the millage rate, and you end up with the property tax, and then plus any special assessments. And David's absolutely right. You can fight them every year to get newer property tax amounts. So this one here, they're saying that the property taxes are going to be $44.87 for the year. So I'm going to plug that into the calculator here. Let me share this screen instead. Let's say we put 20% down. What's the current? Anyone know what's the current interest rate right now?
Or something. Or for two?
You guys know about bankrate.com, right? So you can go to bankrate.com anytime you want, and you go here to home purchase, and it'll tell you, if you scroll down here, it'll say for today, Thursday, March 31st, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate is 4.89. So that's the current interest rate across the country. Now, we could probably get better than that, but that just gives you an idea, like if we're going to just kind of do some, ballpark here, gives you an idea. So I still need an estimate for insurance. I thought they had that in here somewhere. Anyone know where am I looking here? I'm looking for the tools on what they estimate to be insurance, and is it only when the property is it because the property is not on the market right now that I'm not seeing that?
Probably. Yeah, I don't know.
So let's look at another property in the same neighborhood, and we'll just go off of this for the other estimates if they've got it for sale. So homeowners insurance, they're estimating at $140 a month. That would be $1,680 for the year. Sounds about right. 4.89. So leasing costs, let's say 6%. What would that be? $117 a month. That's probably about right for property management fees. Maintenance reserve, we'll try to hit $1,000 per year. Utilities should be zero. We should have our tenant paying for all of that. $7 a month. I don't think this one had any. In fact, I'm sure it did not have any HOA fees. So here's how that property pans out right now today. Let's say we can get it for $2,000 a month. I mean, we can probably get our loan for a little cheaper than this at 4.75. So at 20% down, it's almost cash flow positive, but it's not. And I don't like that. So say we put that 25% down. 25% down. Now we're just about break even. So for assuming it's move-in ready, you put $81,000 in and you own this $324,000 property, it's going to be kind of cash flow break even for the first few years. And then your annual cash flow will go up quickly from there. From, within a few years, you'll be pulling in a few $1,000s a year. 6 years from now, you'll have $10,000 a year coming in. And that's just cash flow. So what do you guys think? How does this compare with what was the one we did last week? Let's see here.
I think the last week was better. Didn't we?
Where it was Marywood, Indiana. Was that the one we did last week?
Yeah, I was going to say it was in the Midwest, Indiana. Yeah. It seemed like those numbers were a little more favorable.
Yeah, let's check it out. So now I can't, with my screen sharing, I can't do them side by side. Also, let's say 25% down. Here, to make it even, let me see if I can get them to be kind of match. So here we go. To make them even, I put for the Texas property, we're going to put 35% down. Oh, let me match the interest rates. That's partly why it looks better, by the way, is because interest rates went up slightly.
Oh.
So if you were to spend $115,000 in Marywood on that property in Marywood, Indiana, you would own 25% of the property because it. Why is it? Oh, because we said it needed some repairs. That's why. All right. To be fair, let's say the one in Texas needs about the same amount of repairs. All right, hold on. Let me match this up so we're comparing apples to apples. Cool. Okay, so we're saying we spent $131,000. That's how much. Some of that is going towards the down payment, and some of that is going towards $50,000 worth of repairs, right? The property in Indiana, you would own 31% of it, and it would cash flow $1,800 per year. The one in Texas, you would own 25% of the property, and it would basically be cash flow break even. So in that case, Indiana would get you more cash flow right off the bat. Now let's look at the true measure of the ROI. Accumulated cash flow. Let's say after 30 years, right? You keep the property for 30 years. Assuming they appreciate at the same rate. Now, in that case, you would benefit from the property in Texas. That one would appreciate for the total accumulated return would be 1.3 million. The one in Indiana would be 1.1 million. But honestly, the truth is that I think that the reason why that is because you're more leveraged in the property in Texas, which is why you're only putting 25% down instead of 31% down. So I think honestly they're both great deals. They're probably both going to appreciate at about the same rate. You're going to get a little more cash flow by putting more than 25% down, but over time you're better off being leveraged by taking out as much loan as you can get, right? So which is why the one in Texas would slightly better. What I'm saying is that they both appear to be very good investments, either one of them.
And there's only one more thing. You need to
Yeah.
figure out what the growth rate is, because I think Indiana has much less growth rate than Texas. So that could make a big difference in the long-term calculation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see, growth rate of Indiana. Indiana is growing at 4.7%. It says Texas is growing by 1.1%. I don't think that's correct. Hold on a second here. Oh, this is over the past decade. All right, hold on. We're not comparing apples to apples. All right, hold on a second here. Indiana grew 0.5% in 2019. Texas grew 1.1%. So more than double. Texas is growing more than double as fast. By the way, top here, let me share this. I just Googled top fastest growing. I mean, when I was pulling this up, it showed me the fastest growing states. In percent growth, number one is Idaho, which if you didn't know that already, right? We could have guessed that. 2 is Utah. I guess Utah and Montana are tied. Or is that? Oh yeah.
Growing?
Utah, yeah, Montana and Utah are growing 1.7.
So how did you know Idaho was growing? I didn't know that.
Well, I knew that because Boise, Idaho is booming right now.
Oh, Boise, yeah.
Yeah, it is growing like crazy. Many of us on this call have probably had clients ask us about Idaho here at some point recently. Utah and Montana are growing. Arizona is growing at 1.4. South Carolina and Delaware both growing 1.2. Texas 1.1. Florida and Nevada growing at 1%, and then South Dakota at 0.9. Now, flip of that, let me see the states with lowest growth rate. The fastest shrinking states are North Dakota, Louisiana, Mississippi, Hawaii, Alaska, Illinois, Virginia, and Wyoming. You know what state is not there?
California.
Yeah, everybody talks about how California, everyone's like leaving. That's why people are leaving California. Like it is true. Well, here, for sake of comparison, what's the growth rate of California?
Oh my God, 5.8%.
That's over a decade. That's over a decade.
Right. Since 2000. And the articles are so negative, but everyone's still coming here.
I want to see try to get some recent data on recent the annual growth rate 2021. Let's see if we can find that out. California's population declined by 173,000 people over the last year, basically through July 2021. So that is of a total of 39 million people. So that's like basically flat, right? So we divide it by 39.
And I just put a link for you from bankrate.com.
Oh, awesome. Hold on a second here. In the chat bar?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good. I like that. Oh, do you guys see that? Hold on, let me share that on the screen here. This is a great article that David put up here. It's the housing heat index, where prices are growing the most right now. By the way, you'll note that as much as we talk about California, it's actually not as high as other places. Number one is Utah, by the way. Oh, look at it. This is an amazing article. What a great article. Thanks, David. The 5 states that had the strongest housing economies in the last quarter were Utah, Arizona, Montana, Washington, and Florida. 5 states with the coolest housing economies: Connecticut, New York, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Louisiana. Note that California is not there either. Oh, look, there's even a housing heat index. So we ranked 16th in appreciation. We also ranked 49th in tax rank, cost of living 49th, job growth rank 8. That's actually good, right? And unemployment rank 51. We have bad unemployment. Very bad. In fact, the worst there is.
Yeah.
Although it's funny, our unemployment is the worst, but then we also had job growth rank 8. So
Look at the
that.
past due for loan amounts. That seems really high too. No? Am I reading it wrong? Does
Yeah,
that
I do.
mean
I mean, I have to read the article, but I
foreclosures?
imagine how many people are behind on their loans is I'm guessing what that means, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, David, thanks for sharing. This is really good.
You're welcome.
Wow.
But there you go. I mean, you know, we talk this little map here. I mean, we talk about investing in Nevada, Arizona, Utah, you know. This is one more reason that adds to that. Although, you know, like I said, it's not that I wouldn't invest in California. It's just with where I'm at right now, I'm looking to go either Nevada or Arizona myself. Although I keep reading, I guess this is pertinent to you guys. I read this article about how the water crisis in Nevada is getting really bad. Lake Mead and Lake Powell are like way below their usual. Like I was at the, what do you call it? The Hoover Dam over Thanksgiving, and you should see it's not like it used to be. There's not much water on the side that's usually like a big lake. I mean, it's like, you know, it's down really far. And that's where I believe Las Vegas gets a lot of its water from, from the Colorado River, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it does.
Anyways, guys, we'll wrap up there. Was this helpful? Was this a good stuff?
Great. Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
So hopefully some of us will be investing soon, and we can talk more about like real life examples and less theoretical stuff. But that's all right. In the meantime, we'll just keep doing theoretical stuff. All right, guys,
Okay.
I will see you all next week.
Thank you, Ed.
Great to see you guys as usual, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, you guys.